The phone vibrates in L and Seok-hyun's pocket. He's driving in the car, running errands. He looks out the window at the evening city. He takes out his phone, looks at the screen, sees a number. Just numbers. But he recognizes these numbers immediately. It's his ex-wife's number, Chon Haran. They didn't speak for 8 months. After the divorce, everything ended. He deleted her number, but he knows it by heart. The phone rings. It doesn't stop vibrating. He doesn't answer right away. He waits. Then he swipes his finger across the screen. He brings the phone to his ear. He's silent, waiting for the first word. There's silence on the line, but he hears a slight noise, like breathing. He's not thinking about anything. His face shows no emotion. He's just waiting. This call knocks him out of his usual routine. The meeting he's going to now seems unimportant. A few seconds pass. Still silence. "Hello?" he says finally. His voice is even, expressionless. The only response is breathing, uneven. He recognizes that breathing. She's nervous. He's patient. He knows how to wait. "Why are you calling?" he asks. His voice grows cold. He doesn't want to show interest. She's silent. She breathes into the phone. It seems she's about to say something, but she can't. And then he asks the question. The very question that has been bothering him all these months. He didn't want to ask it, but the words burst out of him. "You were pregnant and didn't tell me?" Seok-hyun says. His voice sounds harsh, sharp. He immediately regrets it, but it's too late. After his question, there's complete silence. Even the breathing on the line stops. Then he hears a sound, short, like she's choking. Not a word, not a cry, just a sound, full of pain. This is enough for him. Everything suddenly falls into place in his head. Her behavior before the divorce, the fatigue, the desire to end it all quickly, her refusal of his help. Now everything is clear. He understood everything without words. Her silence was the answer. His hand grips the phone so tightly that his fingers turn white. His insides first feel cold, then hot. He sits motionless, stares into space. His world changes in a second. He doesn't wait any longer. He doesn't need any excuses. The fact is clear. He puts the phone down on the seat. He doesn't hang up. He just puts it down. His face is expressionless. Only his jaw is clenched tightly. He presses a button. The glass partition between him and the driver lowers. The driver looks in the mirror, waiting for instructions. "We're changing the route," Seok-hyun says. His voice is quiet but firm. "We're going to the old address, to the house in Gwangjin. You know?" The driver simply nods. "Got it, boss." The car smoothly changes lanes. It turns at the intersection. Now they're not going to a business meeting. All plans are canceled. The decision was made quickly. He didn't even think about it. His body and mind demanded one thing, to see everything with his own eyes, to understand what she was hiding. He looks out the window, but doesn't see the streets. Her face on the day of the divorce is before his eyes, calm, closed. And that quiet sigh on the phone that turned everything upside down. The car stops at a familiar entrance. Lee Seok-hyun steps out alone. He looks at the windows on the 5th floor. A light is on in one of them. He knows it's the kitchen window. He doesn't call the elevator. He takes the stairs. His footsteps echo loudly in the concrete shaft. On each flight, he passes familiar doors, familiar signs with apartment numbers. Nothing has changed here in 8 months. He approaches her door, apartment 504. The sign is the same. He doesn't ring the doorbell right away. He stands and listens. No sounds come from behind the door. His heart is beating hard, fast. It's an unusual feeling for him. He's usually calm. His pulse doesn't race even in dangerous situations. But now he feels every beat inside his chest. His hands are a little cold. He thinks about what he might see behind that door. Part of him hopes he was wrong, that her sigh on the phone meant nothing. But another, larger part already knows the truth. He raises his hand, knocks on the door with his knuckles. 3 crisp, quiet knocks. The way he always knocked when he returned home. This used to be his home. A soft sound comes from behind the door. Footsteps. They are light, quick, then a pause. Someone is looking through the peephole. Seok-hyun stands up straight, making himself visible. He's not smiling. He's not trying to look friendly. His face is just a face. Neutral, firm. A clicking sound. The lock unlocks. The door doesn't open all the way, only as far as the chain allows. In the gap between the door and the frame, he sees her face. Chon Haran. She looks different. Not much. But he notices it right away. Her face seems tired. There are light shadows under her eyes. Her hair is pulled back into a simple ponytail. She's wearing simple sweatpants and a t-shirt. He's never seen her like this. Before, she always tried to look perfect, even at home. But the main thing is her eyes. They are wide open. In them he reads pure, silent fear, like that of a person who has seen something they never expected to see. They look at each other silently across the chain. She doesn't say hello. She doesn't ask what he needs. She simply watches, holding onto the edge of the door. "Open the door, Karen," he says finally. His voice is low, emotionless. Not an order, but not a request either. A statement. She moves her hand slowly, as if in slow motion. She removes the chain. She opens the door completely. She steps back to let him pass. He steps over the threshold. The smell of the apartment hits his nose. It's different, not what it was before. Before it smelled of her perfume, his cologne, coffee. Now it smells of something milky, clean, fresh, and something elusive, childish. He finds himself in a small hallway. She closes the door behind him. The click of the lock seems very loud. They stand in the cramped space of the hallway. Less than a meter separates them, but the distance seems enormous. She is on her own turf. He is an uninvited guest. He looks at her. She looks at the floor. The air is heavy with unspoken words. 8 months of separation hang between them like a thick, invisible wall. Here, in this apartment, time stopped on the day he left, and then took some other path, unknown to him. He doesn't know what to say first. "How are you?" is funny. "Why did you lie?" He almost knows the answer. He just stands there, waiting for this icy silence to break. His gaze slides past her, into the apartment, into the living room, and there he sees it. A formal sofa and a glass table used to stand against the wall. Now the sofa is covered with a large, light-colored fabric. A soft pink blanket, folded into a square, rests on it. Nearby on the floor lies a playmat with brightly colored arches and hanging toys. There are no magazines on the coffee table. Instead, there are packages of wet wipes, a small bottle, and a small box of baby powder. Seok-hyun looks away. He sees a clothesline in the corner of the room. It's not her clothes drying there, not his old t-shirts, which she probably threw out long ago. There are tiny onesies hanging there, socks the size of his palm, and tiny sweaters. This simple, everyday detail changes everything completely. There are no more doubts. A child lives here. His child. This thought, once abstract and distant, suddenly becomes tangible, solid, and real. At Karen again. She watches him. She sees how his eyes linger on every detail. She makes no attempt to hide anything. It's too late. "Where is he?" Seok-hyun hears his own voice. It sounds hoarse, alien. She's silent for a few seconds. She looks at him, then her gaze drops. "She," Karen quietly corrects. "She's sleeping." That one word, "she," drops into the silence of the hallway like a stone into water. It creates ripples that spread out and change everything. A chain instantly forms in his head. Pregnancy, child, girl. Before, there was only the fact of pregnancy. Now there's gender. Now there's her. Specific, real. His world, already shattered by the phone call, is now completely upended. All his pillars, business, power, control, collapse in an instant. All that remains is that one little word and the silence of the apartment where his daughter sleeps. He didn't even know he wanted a daughter. Now he knows she exists. He nods. He just nods, because he can't get a word out. The lump in his throat is making it difficult, but after the shock comes another feeling. It rises from deep within, cold and heavy. It's rage. Not hot, but icy. The kind that freezes everything inside. He takes a step forward, not to get closer to her, but because his body is tense. His voice, when he finally speaks, is unnaturally quiet, dangerously quiet. 8 months, he says, enunciating each word. 8 months you knew. 8 months I suspected nothing. You gave birth to our child and didn't even bother to tell me. He doesn't scream. He hisses. His eyes darken. All his usual restraint now works to contain the storm inside. He feels cheated, humiliated. He missed the most important thing. Her pregnancy, the birth, the first months of his child's life. He was deprived of this choice. He was deprived of this time. You had no right, he adds, and in these words is all his pain and all his strength clenched into a fist. Karen takes a step back, not out of fear, but to create distance. Her own eyes light up in response. There's no fear of his anger in them. There's weariness in them and a truth of their own. I had every right. Her voice, also quiet but firm. What right should I have given you? The right to bring this world into her life? She hugs herself protectively. Your world is your middle-of-the-night calls. Your business meetings that you'd return from with empty eyes. Your people at the entrance. I didn't want my child to breathe that air. I didn't want him to grow up in fear like I did this past year. I didn't want his father to be a shadow that comes and goes. I wanted to protect him, her, from all of this, even if that meant protecting him from you. Her words hit home. Seok-hyun freezes. His anger still simmers, but now cracks of doubt are appearing within it. He recalls the last months of their marriage. Yes, he was consumed by business, a huge conflict over territory, constant negotiations, threats, the need to always be on guard. He came home late. He turned off his phone only in the bedroom. Even at dinner, his thoughts were there, in that cruel maelstrom. He remembers her face at the table, silent, tense. He thought she was simply tired. He promised that everything would be fine soon, that he would create a safe, peaceful future for them. He didn't see that his future was destroying their now. His world, which he had built as a fortress for his family, was in fact a battlefield into which he had unwittingly drawn her. And she, seeing this, decided to leave, taking their unborn child with her. How did you... He starts and stops. His voice is no longer as strong as it once was. How did you cope? Karen shrugs. The gesture speaks volumes. I coped. I quit my day job when my belly became visible. I took on freelance translation jobs. My sister came for the first 2 weeks after I returned from the hospital. Then I was alone. I read books, watched videos, studied. She speaks evenly, without trembling. She simply lists the facts. Morning sickness, back pain, choosing a stroller based on online reviews, the fear of the first cry in the night. There are no complaints in her story. There is only the hard, daily work she did in complete silence and solitude, without his support, without his money, without his participation. Seok-hyun listens. His anger finally cools, leaving behind a feeling of vast, icy emptiness and shame. Why did you even decide to leave her? He asks. The question blurts out. If it was so complicated, if you were so scared, if I was such a problem. Karen looks straight at him. There's something hard, unyielding in her gaze, something he's perhaps never seen before. Because she was mine, she says clearly. My decision, my choice, not yours, not your rules, not the consequences of your actions. This was something entirely mine, and I decided to fight for it, alone. She doesn't say this defiantly. She simply states it. This was her fortress, her territory, her difficult but conscious choice. There was no place for him in this choice from the very beginning. He was not an ally, but part of the problem that needed to be protected from. Seok-hyun understands this, and for the first time that evening, he finds nothing to say. All his power, influence, money, all of it has proven meaningless and unnecessary in the only important matter that happened without him. The silence after her words lasts for several seconds. Seok-hyun digests everything he's heard. His mind, primed for suspicion and fact-checking, automatically produces the next logical question, by the standards of his world. This question always lingers within him whenever something important is being discussed. He asks it coldly, without emotion. Are you sure? He says, his voice smooth as a blade again, that this is my child? The air in the cramped hallway seems to freeze. Karen freezes. She looks at him, and at first, pure bewilderment appears in her eyes, as if she didn't understand the question. Then the bewilderment gives way to something sharp and bright. Resentment, bitterness. Her face grows even darker. She doesn't look away. She doesn't lower her head. On the contrary, her chin lifts slightly. She looks him straight in the eyes, more directly than she's perhaps ever looked before. Yes, Lee Seok-hyun, she says quietly, but very clearly. Every word is enunciated. I am absolutely certain. You were the last. There was no one after you, ever, not even close. She doesn't scream, she doesn't cry. She simply speaks the truth. And there's such bitter certainty in that truth that Seok-hyun has no doubt left. The cynical part of his brain retreats. He believes her, immediately and unconditionally, perhaps because he sees the pain in her eyes, perhaps because he knows her. He used to know. She couldn't lie about important things. Her lies were in her silences, not in her words. And now her words ring so pure that arguing with them is pointless. He nods silently, just once. This nod means, okay, I believe. All his anger, all his tension sinks deep. All that remains is a strange emptiness and the realization that he has a daughter. He looks at Karen. His gaze is different now. There's no longer any accusation in it. There's something uncertain, almost lost. He exhales slowly. The air comes out heavily. Show me her, he says. His voice is now simply quiet. There's weariness in it and a new alien note, almost a request. Please. He adds this please almost inaudibly. He hasn't asked for a long time. He used to command or offer conditions. Now he asks, Karen looks at him for a moment longer, as if assessing him. He sees that the anger has passed. He sees this unusual vulnerability in his posture. She doesn't say yes or no. She simply turns slowly and walks down the short corridor deeper into the apartment. He follows her, one step behind. She approaches the closed door. She stops, reaches for the handle. She looks at him again, as if giving him one last chance to change his mind. He stands motionless, waiting. Karen silently opens the door. The room is dark, lit only by a small nightlight in the corner. It casts a soft, warm light. Seok-hyun pauses at the threshold. He sees a small crib against the wall. His gaze is immediately drawn to it. In a crib, under a light blanket, lies a child. Small, very small. He can only see its outline. A tiny body, a round head. He takes a silent step into the room. He comes closer. Now he sees all the details. Her face, so tiny. Plump cheeks, perfectly straight, dark eyelashes lying on the skin. A small nose, a half-open mouth. She sleeps deeply, her breathing quiet and even. She touches her cheek with one hand, a fist the size of a walnut. Seok-hyun doesn't breathe. He just watches. His mind, usually filled with plans, numbers, names, threats, becomes completely empty and silent. There are no thoughts. There is only this spectacle. He's never seen anything like it. It's unlike anything he's ever seen. This fragile, defenseless creature paralyzes him. He's afraid to move, lest he disturb this silence, this calm. A feeling he can't name arises in his chest. It's huge, heavy, and warm all at once. It squeezes his throat. He stands like that for maybe a minute, maybe two, not moving. Her name is Hana, Karen whispers from behind. She doesn't enter this room, leaving him alone with this discovery. Kan Hana, he nods, not taking his eyes off the sleeping girl. Hana. Now this new, enormous feeling in his heart has a name. Seok-hyun continues to stand by the crib. He still can't move. The feeling that arose in his chest when he first saw Hannah hasn't gone away. It only intensifies. It aches, as if something is squeezing him from the inside. But it's not pain. It's something else. Heavy, warm, enormous. It fills the entire space inside him, displacing everything else. Anger, fatigue, thoughts of work. He'd never felt anything like this before. Not towards his parents, not towards his friends, not towards Karen on his best days. It was something primal and simple. It was the desire to stand here and watch. It was the acute fear that something bad might happen. It was an overwhelming desire to protect this tiny, sleeping creature from the entire world. He doesn't understand this feeling. He doesn't know what to do with it. It frightens him with its power. Before, he controlled everything, especially his feelings. Now he controls nothing. This feeling controls him. He can't look away. Karen's whisper reaches his ears as if from far away. Hana! Can Hannah! Now this unfamiliar, all-consuming feeling has a name. It's not abstract. It's not just child or daughter. This is a specific girl. Hana, his daughter. Kang Hana. The name makes everything even more real, even more poignant. He repeats it in his mind. Hana. A simple, beautiful name. Now it's the most important word in his world. He finally tears his gaze away from the sleeping girl and slowly turns to Karen. He nods. Again. No words are needed. He has heard. He has accepted the name. It is forever imprinted in his memory. He takes a step back from the crib, then another. It's hard for him to move, but he knows he can't stand here all night. He takes one last look at Hana and quietly leaves the room. Karen closes the door behind him, just as silently. They go into the kitchen. The light is brighter here. He sits down at the table he once chose himself. The chair creaks under his weight. Karen remains standing. She leans against the countertop, keeping her distance. Tension rises between them again, but this time it's of a different kind. It's not hostile. It's awkward, full of unspoken thoughts. Seok-hyun looks at his hands, resting on the table. Then he looks up at her. You need money, he says. His voice is businesslike again, but it's not as harsh as before. It's a statement of fact as he sees it. A good clinic for observation. A nanny so you can rest. Anything. He says it almost like an order. That's how he's used to solving problems. He sees a problem. He offers the resources to solve it. For him, it's simple. He has the money. She has the need. It's logical. Haran is silent. She looks at him, her face expressionless. I'm not begging Lee Seok-hyun, she says finally, her voice filled with tired irritation. This isn't begging, he quickly retorts. His jaw tenses. It's my duty, my responsibility. I have to provide for my daughter. For him, it's a matter of principle. Black and white. He's a father. He's obligated to give money. It's a way to somehow make up for those 8 months when he knew nothing, when he wasn't there. Money is what he gives best. It's his language of care, the only one he knows. Karen shakes her head. Her movement is decisive. No. Thank you, but no. She straightens up. I've gone back to work. I take projects home. My money is enough for rent, food, everything she needs. She says this firmly, with dignity. I don't want your money. I don't want to be indebted to you. I want to know that I can handle it myself, that my daughter and I don't depend on anyone. Especially not on you, her words cut. Especially from you. She wants independence for a reason. She wants independence from him, from his world, from his influence, from his toxic care that used to look like control. She wants to be in charge of their lives herself. This is her fortress, built alone, and she has no intention of opening the gates. Seo-kyun sees this firmness. The old him might have started to push. Now he understands that it won't work. She's not the girl he once knew. She's become stronger, more stubborn. He changes tactics. He leans back in his chair, pretending to accept her refusal. Fine, he says. Your choice, but I'll leave you my personal card. Just like that. In case of emergency, he sees her about to object and raises his hand to stop her. If you refuse the card, he continues calmly, but leaving no room for argument, I'll simply open an account in Hannah's name. I'll transfer a certain amount into it every month. You won't be able to stop it. It will be her money, not yours. You have no right to deprive a daughter of what a father can give. He looks at her, waiting for a reaction. He's not bluffing. He'll do just that. This is his new approach. He's not attacking her fortress directly. He's offering a bridge. An emergency fund. Help for his daughter, not for her. It's a subtle difference, but an important one. He's showing that he has no intention of backing down, but is willing to make concessions in a formal way. He's learning to speak her language, the language of boundaries and respect, even if that language itself is still foreign to him. At that moment, another phone starts vibrating in his pocket. A work phone. The vibration is insistent, sharp. It cuts through the silence of the kitchen like a knife. All the tension between them instantly breaks. Seok-hyun's face changes. It becomes smooth, stony, without a single emotion. This is his work face, a mask behind which nothing can be seen. He unapologetically takes out his phone and looks at the screen. A certain name is lit up on it. Not his boss, not his friend. It's connected to matters he's never discussed with Karen. I need to answer, he tells her, already lifting the phone to his ear. His voice is back to how she remembers it. Cold, distant, full of authority. He turns to the window. Yes, he says into the phone. He listens for a few seconds. His back tenses. When? I see. Where is Mino now? Good. Hold still until I call. Awaiting details. The conversation is short. He doesn't ask unnecessary questions. He gives brief instructions. He hangs up. He turns to Karen. Now he looks like a completely different person. A person from the world she just spoke of. There's no anger in his eyes, but a cold, focused calculation. Reality has caught up with him and rudely reminded him of itself right here in her kitchen. I have to go, he says. His voice leaves no room for argument. He's already moving toward the hallway, his movements quick and precise. Karine follows him silently. She sees this change and realizes that everything she's been saying is true. His world isn't just long hours. It's the phone calls that make his face harden. It's the orders he gives in a quiet, dangerous voice. He stops at the threshold and turns. His gaze slides past her, toward the hallway where Hannah sleeps. Then he looks directly at Karen. Lock the door. Don't take off the chain. Don't open the door to anyone after 9 o'clock, even if they say it's from a courier service. Don't order anything delivered to your home. If you see strangers on the landing, call me immediately on this number. He quickly tears a sheet of paper from the notebook lying on the cabinet by the door and writes down a number. Not his work number, a different one. Always check the peephole. I'll call tomorrow. He doesn't ask if she understands. He speaks instructions like a program. His world, that same dangerous world, has once again reached out its tentacles. Now it threatens not only him, but also what had just become most important to him. He gives her the weapon of rules, but he understands how fragile it is. The car is waiting at the entrance. Seo-kyun climbs into the back seat. The door closes with a dull thud. To the office, he says curtly to the driver. The car starts moving. He doesn't look out the window at her floor. He looks straight ahead, but doesn't see the street. Two images stand before his eyes. The first is Karen's face, full of tired determination. The second is Hannah's tiny face in the light of the nightlight. The call was about problems, a conflict over territory, dissatisfaction between partners. Previously, his reaction would have been immediate and harsh. He would have started planning a response, a show of force. Now he's thinking about something else. He's thinking that if he escalates, his enemies might strike not at him, but at what's important to him. And that important is currently sleeping in a crib in his ex-wife's apartment. It's not a business asset. It can't be protected by threats or people at the entrance. It's fragile. He makes a decision, lightning fast, as always. Cancel, he tells the driver. Take me home. He stares into the dark glass, reflecting his own stony face. Everything has to change, he thinks. He can't simply give Karen instructions. He must change the source of the danger. He needs to become calmer, less visible. He needs to distance himself from the hottest spots. Shift his business to a quieter, more legal channel. It will take time. It will cost money and influence. But the image of Hannah sleeping makes any other choice impossible. He's willing to pay any price to keep his daughter from breathing this air of fear. He's just realized Karen was right, and now he must fix it. Not with words, but with actions. 3 days pass. Karine doesn't call the number she left. She follows the rules, locks the doors, doesn't open the door to anyone after 9. On the morning of the 4th day, she leaves her apartment and sees a box at the door. Large, but not heavy. There are no courier logos on it, only her name and address, handwritten in a neat, impersonal script. She carefully places the box inside and opens it. Inside is a modern, sophisticated convertible stroller, an expensive model she'd been eyeing online for a while but couldn't afford. In the stroller's pocket is an envelope. It contains only a receipt and a warranty card. No notes, no signatures. Karen stands and looks at the stroller. She feels a mixture of emotions. Irritation. She doesn't need his handouts. Gratitude. Her old stroller really is falling apart. And fear. So he knows where she lives. Of course he does. But it also means he's thinking about them. He didn't just give an order and forget about it. 2 days later, a new package arrives. High-quality premium formula. Hard to find in regular stores. Then comes a large package of good diapers. She never sees the courier. The boxes just appear. She knows who it is. She resents his insistence, his way of using money to solve everything. But she uses the stroller. She tries the formula. Hannah eats it with gusto. Karen silently stacks the empty boxes, feeling a debt she so didn't want, and at the same time realizing that these things truly make her life easier. His care is quiet, anonymous, and intrusive. She doesn't know how to feel about it. Another week passes. The weather is fine. Karen decides to take Hannah for a long walk for the first time in the large park near their home. The new stroller rolls easily along the paths. Hannah is awake, looking around. Karen chooses a quiet alley off the main paths. She sits down on a bench to straighten her blanket. She raises her head and freezes. At the other end of the alley stand Elle and Seokyun. He's alone. He's not wearing a jacket, but a simple dark coat and jeans. He, too, seems to be simply strolling. He looks in her direction. They notice each other at the same time. Seokyun doesn't smile, but he nods slightly. He doesn't approach her right away. At first, he pretends to look at the trees. Then, slowly, he begins to move toward her. Harin feels her stomach clench. Coincidence? She doesn't believe in coincidences. Lee Seokyun, she says as he approaches. Her voice is neutral. John Harin, he replies. He stops at a respectful distance. I'm on business nearby. He doesn't look at her, but at Hannah in the stroller. His gaze immediately changes. Softer. On business? In the park? Karen asks, and there's a hint of distrust in her voice. I have my own interest here, he says evasively, shrugging. Just out for a walk. How are you? There's an awkward pause. Harin is about to say something, but at that moment, Hannah lets out a quiet whimper. She probably wants to move, Seokyun remarks. Yeah, I guess, Harin agrees. She stands up and adjusts the hood of the stroller. Let's keep going. They begin to walk side by side. The alley is narrow. He walks to the left of the stroller, keeping his distance. At first, they are silent. The only sounds are the creaking of wheels and the singing of birds. It seems surprisingly natural. Just a man, a woman, and a stroller in a park. No one from the outside would guess the story behind this picture. They walk like this for about 100 meters. Harin looks ahead. Seok-hyun looks at Hannah, who has fallen silent again, lulled by the movement. Can I? He suddenly asks, not looking at Harin. What? She doesn't understand. Hold her. For a little while, if she's not sleeping. Karen stops the stroller. She looks at him, then at her daughter. Hannah lies with her eyes open. Do you know how? Karen asks cautiously. I've read, he says simply. She nods slowly. She unbuckles the stroller's straps. She carefully picks Hana up, adjusts her hat, and then, taking a small step, hands her to Seokyun. He holds the baby, as if he's been practicing for a long time. He supports her head with one hand, her back with the other. He holds her tightly, but firmly. He freezes, looking at her small face. Hana looks at him with her large, dark eyes. She blinks. She doesn't smile, but she doesn't cry either. She simply examines this new face. He doesn't breathe. Then he takes a very cautious step, then another. He walks down the alley, holding his daughter in his arms, and his face is completely defenseless in this moment. They sit down on the bench again. Now Haran is holding Hana, and Seokyun is sitting next to her, but not too close. "Why are you doing all this, Seokyun?" Haran asks quietly. She looks not at him, but at the trees. "Strollers, formula, these chance encounters. What do you want?" She turns her head and looks him straight in the eye. There's no anger in her gaze, only a tired wariness. "Do you want to take her?" She asks the most terrifying question for herself. "Use your money, your lawyers? I won't allow it. I'll fight to the end." Her voice trembles, but she speaks firmly. This is her greatest fear, that all his actions are just preparation for a custody battle, that he sees Khan as property that was taken from him. Seokyun listens to her. His face is serious. He doesn't look away. "No," he says simply and clearly. "I don't want to take her away from you. Ever." He pauses, collecting his thoughts. He finds it difficult to find the words. He's used to commanding, not explaining. I realize now that you were right then. My world was the wrong place for a child. And I was the wrong person." He looks at his hands. "I can't change the past. I can't bring back those 8 months." He looks up at her. "But I can try to change the future. I want her to have everything, but not like before, not with money from afar." He takes a deep breath. "I want to be a father, a real one. Not on paper, not like an ATM. I want to know how she grows. I want to be there if she falls. I want for her to know my face, not be afraid of it." He says this slowly with difficulty. These words are new to him, unpracticed. He doesn't promise to be perfect. He doesn't ask for forgiveness. He simply speaks of desire, something he's never wanted before and never even thought he could want. "I don't know how to do this," he admits honestly. "I have no experience, but I want to learn. If you let me try, I will do only what you say. I will follow all your rules." His answer is unexpected for both of them. He speaks not of rights, but of a desire to change. Not of taking something, but of learning to be there. It's the most sincere request Haran has ever heard from him. Almost a month passes. During this time, a fragile, strange rhythm is established. Seokyun doesn't call every day. He sends short messages. "How are you? Everything okay?" Sometimes he shows up at the park by accident. They go for walks. He learns to hold Hana, entertain her with the rattle he bought himself. He asks questions about the daily routine, about solid foods. He listens attentively, memorizing. He doesn't try to dictate. He respects boundaries. Karen gradually, very slowly, begins to trust him, not as a husband or a partner, but as a father to his daughter, trying hard. She sees his efforts, sees how his usually stony face softens when he looks at Hana. This isn't an act. This is something real, but his world hasn't disappeared. It's somewhere nearby, like a low hum behind a closed door. Sometimes in the evenings, he looks tired, tense, but he says nothing. One evening, already in the twilight, there's a sharp, insistent knock on the door. Not a bell, but a knock. Karin, out of habit, goes to the peephole. 2 men in dark clothes stand on the landing. Not couriers, and between them is Lee Seokyun. His face is pale, and his eyes glow with that same cold fire she'd seen before. But now there's something new in them, a clear, undisguised fear. She, throwing caution to the wind, immediately opens the door. "What happened?" "Pack your things. Only the essentials. For 3 or 4 days. Now," he says, stepping inside. His voice is quiet, but it carries such undeniable urgency that Karen doesn't argue. 2 of his men remain on the landing. "What's going on, Seokyun?" she whispers, following him into the bedroom. "The conflict I was trying to resolve has gotten out of hand. Some people, they might decide to hit someone else, not me. Something that's important to me. To put pressure on me," he says, not looking at her, helping her lift her suitcase from the mezzanine. His movements are sharp, precise. "I can't take any chances. Not even for a second." He turns to her and takes her by the shoulders. Not hard, but firmly. He looks her straight in the eyes, and she sees that same fear there. Not for himself, for them. "Please, Karen, trust me now. Go where I tell you. It's a safe place. No one knows about it." My men will take you and stay there to guard you, just for a few days, until I sort everything out. She sees this fear. She sees that he's not pretending. She sees that his "I'll handle it" means something dangerous. The old panic, the familiar feeling of threat, washes over her, but now it's not abstract. Now the threat is directed at Hana. That's enough. Okay, she says quietly. Okay, I'll go. A car takes her and Hana to an unknown destination. The place turns out to be a small but cozy country villa with a high fence. It has everything: food, baby clothes. Two silent men guard the perimeter. She tunes out the news. She doesn't watch TV, she just waits, takes care of Han, and fights her anxiety. On the second day, she can't take it anymore and turns on her laptop. She goes to search. She types his name, Lee Seok-hyun. The news is full of headlines. Major restructuring in business circles. Lee Seok-hyun hands over management of several of his assets. Sudden withdrawal from key projects. There's talk of a voluntary cession of control in exchange for security guarantees. She reads article after article. In dry language, they describe the collapse of an empire. His empire. He's not simply settling the conflict. He's paying for their safety with his power, his position, his influence. He's giving away what he spent years building, probably giving it to his enemies. He's cutting to the quick, cutting off everything that could attract danger. The price is his reputation as king, his strength, his life's work. He's buying their peace and quiet with this enormous, unimaginable sacrifice. He doesn't call for 3 days. On the 4th day, a short message arrives. All clear, you can go back. They'll come for you. She returns to her apartment. Everything is in its place. Nothing is disturbed. But the world now seems different. 2 days pass. She hears a knock on the door again. Calm, quiet. She looks through the peephole. Elle and Seok-hyun are standing on the landing, alone. No one behind him. He's wearing simple dark trousers and a gray sweater. No jacket, no tie. He's holding not a briefcase, but a small paper box. He looks ordinary, tired, but calm. The tense energy that always swirled around him, like a force field, is gone. He looks simpler, and younger, perhaps. She opens the door, not wide. They stand facing each other, just like that first evening. But now everything is different. Hello, he says. Hello? He makes a slight movement with the box. This is some pear puree. They say it's okay to try it at this age. And one more toy, a silent one, so it doesn't interfere with sleep. She nods, stepping back to let him in. He comes in and places the box on the nightstand. How's Hana? He asks, his gaze immediately moving toward the hallway. She's asleep, everything's fine. There's a pause. He stands in the middle of the hallway, as if he doesn't know what to do next. I saw the news, Karen says quietly. He shrugs. It was necessary. You gave everything. Not everything. He looks at her. The main thing is here. He takes a step closer, but not too much. The conflict is resolved. The way I resolved it guarantees that you will not be disturbed again. My activities will now be quiet, very legal, and very boring. He tries to smile, but it comes out uncertainly. I have a lot of free time now. He falls silent, collecting his thoughts. I'm not the same person I was before. Or rather, I'm the same, but I've taken off that armor, that way of life. He searches for the words. I'm not asking for anything in return. I'm not asking for forgiveness. You were right about everything. I understand that completely now. He takes a deep breath. I want to be a father to Hana. A real father, not on credit, not on a schedule. I want to be there. If you let me, I'll come when you say, go when you say. I want to just be in her life. And maybe, he pauses, maybe someday, if you can, we can be not enemies to her, but just parents who get along. He says this not as a request, but as a hope, as a statement of his desire. There's no longer the same confidence in his eyes, but there's a firm determination. He's burned the bridges to his past. He stands on the threshold of a new future, and he has no plan other than one: to be here. Karen looks at him. She sees this new, unusually simple man before her. She sees the box of baby food. She remembers his fear that evening when he sent them away. She thinks of the news headlines. She doesn't say yes. She doesn't say, I forgive you. She doesn't know what will happen next. But she steps aside, leaving more space between herself and the living room door. Would you like some tea? She asks quietly. While she's sleeping, we can talk about the schedule, about how this could work. This isn't forgiveness. This isn't family. This is simply an open door. An opportunity. The first, very cautious step toward a new beginning. Not for them as a couple, but for them as Hana's parents. And for him, as a man who had just been reborn, having paid for this birth with everything he had. He nods slowly. Yes. Tea would be nice. And he goes into the living room, into this quiet house, where now perhaps there will be a small but important place for him too. They're sitting in the kitchen. The tea is cooling in their cups. Seok-yoon sits up straight, his posture still betraying his habit of restraint, but his hands are resting loosely on the table, not clenched into fists. So, Karen begins, looking at his cup. Schedule. Yes, he nods. I'm free. I have a lot of free time right now, so I can accommodate your schedule. He says your schedule, not yours. It's a small but important word. We usually walk in the park around 11 in the morning if the weather is nice, says Heron. Then she falls asleep in the stroller. She's awake for a couple of hours during the day. In the evening, we bathe at 7, then feed and sleep. I can come for a walk, Seok-yoon quickly offers. Or help with bathing, if needed. I read that you need to support the head. Karen looks at him. I read. The words sound strange coming from him, but sincere. Let's start with walks, she says carefully. 3 times a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. At 11 by the monument to the fountain in that park. Okay, he nods, as if receiving an important order. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. I'll be there. Silence falls. The clock on the wall can be heard ticking. And what about your business? Karen asks finally. Did you really leave everything behind? Not everything. I left a few legitimate businesses, a small office, a car dealership, 2 restaurants. Everything is up front, with accountants and taxes. He shrugs. Boring, but peaceful. No late-night calls, no sudden trips. He says this without regret, as if it were a fact. And your people? Most of them moved on. Some stayed to work as security guards in restaurants. Some left. Those who were closer, they understand. He pauses. They know why. Karen understands what he means. They know about Khan. Perhaps this is part of his sacrifice, to become vulnerable, open. Before, his strength lay in fear and secrecy. Now his strength, his new position, is based on this vulnerability, on the fact that he has a weak spot, which he willingly exposed in order to protect. Okay, Karen says again. She doesn't know what else to ask. He takes the last sip of tea and stands up. I have to go. Thank you for the tea. And for the conversation. Wait, she says, standing up too. She goes to the refrigerator and takes out a small glass jar of homemade baby food. Here, take this. It's apple. I made it myself. You can, well, just have a look. So you know what she's eating. He takes the jar carefully, as if it were crystal. He looks at it. Thank you. And you can come tomorrow, at 11, for a trial. If she's not in the mood, the walk can be short. I understand. He nods. His eyes brighten. It's almost like a smile. Tomorrow. At 11. I'll be there. He leaves. Karen stands in the kitchen, listening to his footsteps fade away on the stairs. She feels a strange calm. The fear that had been ingrained in her for all these months has slowly begun to recede. It has been replaced by wary curiosity. The schedule works. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Seok-yoon arrives punctually. He's learned how to assemble and disassemble the stroller. He knows Hana loves looking at leaves, so he always walks along the maple alley. He bought her a soft cloth book and brings it on every walk. He doesn't try to impose himself on Heron. He's focused on his daughter. One Thursday, Hana is being especially fussy. She's teething. She's crying in the stroller, won't calm down. Haran is ready to turn back. Can I try? Seok-yoon asks quietly. Haran, tired and confused, nods. He picks Hana up, but doesn't rock her like he usually does. He gently presses her against his shoulder, so that her cheek rests on the soft fabric of his sweater, and begins to walk slowly, very evenly, along the narrow path between the bushes. He doesn't rock her. He just walks. A steady rhythm to his steps. Deep, calm breathing. He hums something very quietly. Not a melody, just a monotonous, low hum. After 5 minutes, Hana falls silent. Her breathing becomes even. She falls asleep. How did you do that? Heron whispers in surprise. I was just walking. Seok-yoon shrugs just as quietly. He doesn't look at her triumphantly. He simply carefully places his sleeping daughter back in the stroller. She seems to like the rhythm. At that moment, Karen sees him neither as an ex-husband nor as a mafia boss. She simply sees a father who has found his own way to calm his child. 2 weeks later, the first real challenge occurs. Karina has a migraine, a severe one. She can't get out of bed. Her head is splitting, and Hana has woken up and demands attention. The nanny is gone. Her sister is far away. In a panic, she dials his number. The emergency one. He picks up on the first ring. Hello? Seokhyun, I feel bad. I can't get up. Hana's crying, her voice trembling with pain and helplessness. I'm coming. In 15 minutes. Don't lock the door. He arrives even faster. He enters the apartment and quickly assesses the situation. Karan is lying in the bedroom, his face buried in the pillow. Where's the first aid kit? What pills can I take? He asks in a businesslike tone, but without panic. In the bathroom. Top shelf. Paracetamol. She groans. He brings her a pill and water. Then he goes to Hana. Karen hears him talking to her, in a low, calm voice. Hears him preparing the mixture. Then silence. She falls asleep, overcome by pain and the pill. She wakes up 3 hours later. The apartment is quiet. Her head no longer hurts, only weakness. She goes out into the living room. Seokhyun is sitting in the chair. He's also asleep. His head is thrown back, and on his chest, covered by his large palm, Hana is asleep. She's nestled there, her cheek pressed against his sweater. Both are breathing slowly and evenly. Karen stops in the doorway and simply stares. His heart tightens with something warm and sharp at the same time. This isn't love, it's something else. Deep recognition, trust, gratitude. He wakes up from her gaze, slowly opens his eyes. He sees her, carefully, so as not to wake Hana. He checks if everything is okay. How's your headache? It's gone, thank you. She ate, we played a little, then she fell asleep like this, he explains quietly, as if giving a report. I see. Thank you, Seokhyun. Very much. He carefully stands up, holding Hana, and transfers her to the crib. He returns to the living room. You need to rest some more. I can stay here, sit here on the couch, in case she wakes up. Or if you get sick again. Haran looks at him, at this new Seokhyun, who comes at the first call, who knows how to calm a child, who sleeps in a chair, guarding his daughter's sleep, who offers to stay on the couch, clearly setting boundaries. Stay, she says. Please. I'll sleep better. He nods. Okay. I'll be here. They see each other more often now. Not just on a schedule. Sometimes he brings groceries. Not fancy sets, but specific things she asks for, or things he's noticed she likes. He fixes a broken shelf in the bathroom. He changes a light bulb in the hallway. They rarely talk about the past. They talk about Hana, about her new skills, about the solids she's tried. Seokhyun keeps notes on her phone. Doesn't like zucchini, loves pear. On October 15th, she rolled over from her back onto her stomach for the first time. One evening, as he's leaving, Haran stops him at the door. Seokhyun, really? Next Saturday, we have our first appointment at the clinic for a routine checkup, at 9 in the morning. There are a lot of people there. A line. She hesitates. Would you like to come with us? Maybe help with the stroller? With the paperwork? He freezes. This is the first time she's invited him to anything outside of their walks, to a formal social event, to go to the clinic as a father. Yes, he says immediately, too quickly, then more quietly. Of course, I'll be there at 8:30. I'll help you get ready. He proves indispensable at the clinic. He carries the heavy bag of things. He deftly maneuvers the wheelchair through the narrow corridors. He fills out paperwork in his precise handwriting. When the doctor asks about hereditary diseases, he answers clearly, on my father's side, no. He holds Hana while the doctor examines her, and to Karen's surprise, she doesn't cry in his arms. When they exit, he silently hands her a bottle of water. Thank you, Karen says. You did well. It was an important mission, he answers seriously, and a slight, almost invisible spark appears in the corner of his eye. Almost a joke. Karen laughs for the first time in a long time. Sincerely, he looks at her and slowly smiles back. It's not a wide smile. It's just a softening of his entire face, and that's enough. That evening, when he leaves, she says, come over tomorrow. Not for a walk, just to visit. I can bake that kimbap you used to love. He looks at her, and his eyes say more than any words. I'll be there, he says. Definitely. The door closes. Karen leans against it. She no longer feels anxiety. She feels peace. Complex, imperfect, but real. She has a daughter who is growing up healthy, and there is a man who, having made terrible mistakes, found the strength to break everything and start over. For her, not for the sake of reconciliation with his wife, but for the right to call himself a father. They're not a family in the traditional sense. They're two banks of the same river named Hana. And now there's a strong, reliable bridge between them, built not out of force and fear, but out of quiet walks, timely mashed potatoes, the ability to soothe cries, and a willingness to be there when things are tough. This is his new beginning. And hers too. They didn't start with a clean slate. Too much had been written on the old one, but they began a new chapter, and they wrote it together, in simple, understandable words, without metaphors, just day after day, step by step. He arrives the next day at 6 sharp, not empty-handed. In one hand, he holds a box of expensive teas that he remembers she loved. The other is a large, soft toy, a teddy bear, almost as tall as Hana. "This is for her in the future," he says, handing over the toy a little awkwardly. "She won't appreciate these yet." Karen smiles, but accepts the gift. "But thank you. Come in." The smell of cooking fills the apartment. Everything is ready. Hana is awake, sitting in her lounge chair in the kitchen, watching. Seok-hyun immediately approaches her, says hello, and touches her small hand. She grabs his finger. This has become their ritual. They sit down at the table. They eat in silence for a while. Memories come flooding back. They've eaten this kimbap together hundreds of times, at different times in their lives. But now it's different. "It's delicious," Seok-hyun finally says, "just like before." "Thank you." They fall silent again. The sound of their instruments seems loud. "How are your new affairs?" Karen asks cautiously. "They're going, slowly. There's not the same excitement, but there's no headache either," he confides. "I read a lot. About children, about business. I even started an online course on management." "Management of what?" "Anything. But legally." He almost smiles again, that new, uncertain expression that appears on his face more and more often. After dinner, he helps clear the table. He washes the dishes, and she dries them. They work in silence, but in this silence, there's no longer the previous tension. There's a calm, everyday understanding. "Want to stay while I bathe her?" Karen offers unexpectedly. "You can help rock her to sleep later." "Yes," he answers without hesitation. "Of course." He watches the bathing process from the bathroom doorway. He memorizes every movement, the water temperature, how to hold her slippery little body, how to lather her hair. Then he stands nearby while Karen wraps Hana in a towel. Then he helps her put on her pajamas, a difficult task with tiny sleeves, but he manages. Then he picks her up for his evening rocking ritual. He already knows what she likes. He walks around the living room, humming the same low, monotonous rumble. Karen sits on the sofa and watches. She feels a strange mixture of emotions. It feels right, but it also reminds her of something that wasn't there before, back when they were a family. 10 minutes later, Hana falls asleep. He carefully, like a sapper, transfers her to the crib and adjusts the blanket. They both freeze, watching her chest rise and fall evenly. "Thank you," Karen whispers as they leave the room. "Always," he replies just as quietly. He stays for another hour. They drink tea in this kitchen and talk about her. Only about her. Her new sounds, her attempts to crawl, her favorite toy. This is safe territory, shared and important for both of them. When he leaves, he says, "If you allow me, I could come more often, not just on schedule. To help around the house, fix what's broken, carry heavy bags." "Yes," Karen says, "I think that would be good." Thus begins their new informal routine. He shows up 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes during the day, sometimes in the evening. He fixes a leaky faucet. He hangs a shelf for children's books. He brings a new, more convenient clothes dryer. He doesn't ask permission to make major purchases. He simply offers gently, "I saw your old dryer is wobbly. Can I buy a new one? It's safer." And after a brief pause, she agrees. He also becomes a sleep expert. He discovers that Hana sleeps better with a specific white noise sound from an app on his phone. He downloads the app and now always turns it on when he puts her to bed. He notices the first signs of fatigue in the child before Karen does. One day when he comes, Karen looks especially exhausted. Hana hadn't slept well the night before and had been cranky all day. "Go lie down," he says simply. "I'll take her for a walk, then feed her and put her to bed. Just rest for an hour." "Are you sure?" "I can handle it. I have a super app," he says, holding up his phone, and that same sparkle flashes in his eyes. Karen, unable to resist fatigue, agrees. She lies down in the bedroom and falls into a deep, instant sleep. She wakes 2 hours later. The apartment is quiet. She goes out into the living room. Seok-hyun is sitting on the floor, leaning against the couch. Hana is sitting beside him with her legs apart, her back to his stomach. Brightly colored blocks are laid out in front of them. He slowly, patiently stacks one block on top of the other, building a tower. Hana watches, mesmerized. Then, with a delighted babble, knocks it over with her hand. He doesn't get annoyed. He simply starts building again. "Here we go," he says evenly. "Let's do it again." Karen watches this scene, and her heart sinks. She thinks, he's a good father. The thought comes to her without reservation. She sits on the edge of the sofa so as not to disturb him. "How are you?" she asks quietly. "Everything's great. We ate, changed the diaper, built and destroyed an empire about 15 times. Everything according to plan," he replies, not looking up from the blocks. The three of them have dinner together, if you can call it dinner when one member eats mashed potatoes. Haran makes simple noodles. Seo-hyun sets the table. This has become their routine. After dinner, he washes the dishes, and she puts Hana to bed. When she returns to the kitchen, he is already getting ready to leave. "Thank you for today," she says sincerely. "You saved me." "It's nothing. I'm glad I could help." He stands by the door but doesn't leave. "Karen," he begins hesitantly, "I want to propose something." She looks at him warily. "I want to formalize paternity and alimony, not like before, not anonymous transfers, legally, through a notary, so that everything is official for Hana, so that there will be no questions in the future, and so that you can rest easy. This will be your guarantee that I won't disappear." Karen is silent. This is reasonable. This is right. But it also finally writes him into their life on paper. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. This is my responsibility. And my choice." "Okay," she says after a pause. "Let's do it." The process takes a couple of weeks. He finds a calm, middle-aged notary and asks a minimum of questions. Everything proceeds quietly, without emotion. They sign the papers in his quiet office. He is now Kang Hana's legal father. The child support he agrees to pay is more than generous, but clearly spelled out. On the day everything is formalized, he brings a bottle of non-alcoholic cider. "To celebrate," he says. "Not as a victory, as a new starting point." They're having a drink in the kitchen. Hana is asleep. "Now you can't escape her," Karen says, and there's a light, almost playful note in her voice. "I wasn't planning on it," he replies seriously. A few more weeks pass. The first real challenge to their new relationship arrives. Hana's fever rises. It's low at first, then steadily increases. Her cheeks are burning. She cries non-stop. Karen is panicking. She calls her pediatrician, who tells her to monitor the temperature, bring it down, and call an ambulance if it gets worse. Seo-hyun arrives 20 minutes after her call. He brings with him a digital thermometer, children's and fever-reducing syrup, and cooling gel. "I stopped by the pharmacy," he explains. "What does the doctor say?" He listens to her retelling and nods. His face is focused but calm. His calm has a calming effect on Haran. They keep vigil by Hana's crib all night. They take turns. They wipe her down with warm water, give her syrup, and take her temperature. He shows no fear, only caring determination. At one point, late in the night, Karen, sitting on the floor by the crib and holding his daughter's hot hand, begins to cry quietly, from helplessness and fear. He doesn't hug her. He doesn't offer empty consolation. He sits down next to her, also on the floor, and silently places his hand on her shoulder. Heavy, warm, firm, and he just sits like that until her quiet sobs subside. "We'll get through this," he says finally, very quietly. "We're together. We'll get through this." By morning, the fever begins to drop. Hana, exhausted, falls into a deep, wet sleep. Haran and Seo-hyun, both red-eyed and rumpled, sit at the kitchen table. They drink strong coffee. "Thank you for being here," Haran says, her voice hoarse with fatigue and emotion. "Where else would I be?" he replies simply. And in that moment, she realizes it's true. There's no other place for him to be anymore. His center of gravity has shifted. Now he's here, in this small apartment, with this girl, and with her. After that night, something changes. The boundaries become even more fluid. He can now drop by without calling if he knows they're home. He has his own cup in the kitchen. He knows where the clean towels are and what kind of yogurt she likes for breakfast. He still goes to sleep in his room. They are not husband and wife. They are allies. Parents. A team. One evening, as he's leaving, Hana, who's already started crawling, crawls up to him and grabs his pant leg, refusing to let go. She babbles and looks at him with wide eyes. He freezes, then very carefully pries her tiny fingers away and squats down in front of her. "Tomorrow, baby," he tells her softly. "Daddy's coming tomorrow." He definitely will. He says, "Daddy," out loud. For the first time, Karen hears it and freezes at the door. He looks up at her, as if apologizing. "She doesn't understand yet," Karen says, and for some reason her voice trembles. "But I understand," he answers quietly, "and it's important to me." After he leaves, Karen picks Hana up, goes to the window, and watches his car drive away. She thinks about how everything has changed. He kept every word. He's changed. He's become a father, a real one. She doesn't know what the future holds. She doesn't think about bringing back the past. It's burned to the ground, but she looks at the present and sees that it's solid, reliable, built not on passion or empty promises, but on responsibility, care, and small daily actions. They are writing their history anew. And the first chapters of this new book have proven powerful and honest, and that, as Karen understands, is already a great deal. Winter is coming, Hana's first winter. Seokhyun buys her a warm jumpsuit, similar to a panda suit, and a hat with ear flaps. When he puts it on her for the first time, Haran can't help but smile. Hana, clumsy in the bulky clothes, sits on the floor and looks at her puffy sleeves in bewilderment. She's like a little astronaut, Seokhyun remarks, squatting down next to her to zip up her jacket. You overdid it with the insulation, Haran laughs, but her eyes are warm. It's better to overdo it, he replies seriously. His concern sometimes still manifests itself in such an exaggerated maximalist form. They begin going on short winter walks. Seokhyun always walks on the windward side, shielding the stroller from the cold wind. He's explored every warm, windless corner of the park. He carries a thermos of warm tea for Haran in his pocket, and a small hot water bottle that he can place at the foot of the stroller if it gets too cold. One Saturday morning, he doesn't arrive alone. A car follows, from which two of his former employees, now working at his legal auto repair shop, unload a large box and carry it into the apartment. What is this? Haran asks warily. A playpen, for safety. She'll be standing up soon, explains Seokhyun, already having pulled out the instructions. So you'll have a safe place to put her when you need to go to the kitchen. It's huge. It folds up, and you can move it. He, along with two burly but extremely polite men, assembles a playpen in the middle of the living room. The result is a bright, mesh-enclosed space with a soft bottom and toys inside. Hana, watching the process from her mother's arms, lets out a delighted cry when she's lowered inside. She immediately begins exploring this new territory. Haran watches her daughter crawl across the soft surface, shaking her rattle, and feels the constant background tension subside, the fear that she'll fall, hurt herself, while her mother has turned away for a second. Thank you, she says to Seokhyun as his men leave. This is really helpful. I'm glad, he says simply, watching as Hana struggles to stand, holding onto the netting. More time passes. Seokhyun now spends almost all weekends with them. They don't plan anything grand. They go to the park, stroll along the embankment, and stop at quiet cafes with space for a stroller. He's learning to choose a table in the corner, with his back to the wall, but he does this no longer out of paranoia, but out of ingrained habit. His old life has left him scarred by instincts, but they no longer control him. He begins reading books to Hana. Not nursery rhymes, but short, simple stories. He reads in a low, even voice, and she seems to enjoy listening. She sits on his lap, pokes at the pictures, and he patiently explains, this is a cat, this is a house, this is a ball. Karen, cooking in the kitchen or simply relaxing in a chair, hears this monotonous, calm voice from the living room and feels a deep, almost painful peace. This is what she once dreamed of, but never even allowed herself to desire. This is normality, simple, real, without anxiety. On New Year's Eve, he arrives in the evening with packages. I thought we could meet him here, the three of us. If you don't mind, he says, unloading the provisions for a modest festive table. Fruit, sweets, juice. And what about your business? Karen asks. Previously, on such days, he always had some obligatory meetings, banquets. My business is here, he repeats his new mantra. They spend a quiet evening. Hana falls asleep to the chimes of midnight on TV. They sit on the couch, drinking juice, watching a holiday concert. At midnight, firecrackers and salutes ring out the window. Happy New Year, Haran, Seokhyun says, raising his glass slightly. Happy New Year, Seokhyun. Thank you for being here. They are silent, looking at the lights outside the window. Last year brought so much pain, so much change. This new year begins with silence and a strange, fragile sense of community. Tomorrow, says Seokhyun, if you want, we can go out of town. I've got my eye on a place. It's quiet there. There's a lake you can walk by, for the day. Let's go, Karen agrees without hesitation. She's no longer afraid of his proposals. She trusts him, not as a man from her past, but as the father of her daughter, and as a man who has proven his trustworthiness through 1,000 small actions. When he leaves in the early morning, she stands in the hallway and thinks that their story is no fairy tale. There was no instant forgiveness and no resounding happily ever after. It was hard work, working on mistakes, building something new. And this work, as she now understands, is not yet finished, but the foundation has been laid, and it is strong. It has already withstood several tests. She enters Hannah's room and straightens the blanket. Her daughter is sleeping, soundly and carefree. She is safe. She is loved. She has a mother who fought for her, and a father who found the strength to be reborn for her sake. This, Karen thinks, looking at the sleeping face, is already a true miracle. And for now, this is enough for their new, quiet beginning.